Welcome to another episode of Bright Headed Publishing Audiobook Book Club. I am your host, Kelly Morgan. Today I'm happy to bring you another episode of The Writer's Corner. The Writer's Corner is where I bring you those who support authors like editors, illustrators, graphic designers. Today I'm happy to have you meet Illustrator Happylee. Happy has a truly inspirational story about how she became an illustrator, not giving up on her dream, and truly loving what she does. Welcome to the book club, the newest member, Illustrator Happylee. Happylee, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and being a part of the book club. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm very, very happy and thankful to be here. And it's actually my first time, so it's very exciting for me. So thank you so much for giving this opportunity to have me here.
You are so welcome. You are then this is a podcast of first because you are my first illustrator. So, I'm very happy to speak with you and learn about illustrating. I think when it comes to children's books, illustrations are key, right? I mean, what those pictures look like. And I remember one of my favorite books as a kid, and I remember the pictures before I remembered the story was Where the Wild Things Are. Because the illustrations are beautiful, right? And it's just one of those stories that I remember from the pictures. So I'm so excited to speak with you and find out all about what you do and how you can help authors illustrate their books. So let's just get into it. So How did you start being an illustrator, a drawer? What, did you always love to draw, or is it something that you had to really work at?
It's something that you really have to work at, but at the same time, it's something that I also really love doing it. So ever since I was a kid, I always loved to draw. Maybe the moment I learned or saw people doing painting on our walls, or even the first time I saw pencil, I just want to keep drawing. But I lived in an area in the Philippines where it's how do you call that? It's like a very remote area, in the mountains. So being an artist is like, oh, you can draw. That's nice, but that's just a hobby. No, you can't be an artist. It doesn't exist. Those job doesn't work. But in my head, I was always like, so who did all of these books? This is not a job, what about those cartoon TVs? But no one cares in that area. Either you become a nurse or a doctor or a teacher. That's the right path to take. So,
it was the more practical path, It sounds like, right? You had a practical job and you did things that would help you make money, I guess, from where you were at.
Yes, it's all like that. So, it's like I have to go away from my nature. So I grew up, but I want to excel in art, but my family's like, no, you should do more good in math, in English, in science, and all these things. So I have to disregard art and keep focusing on and all these practical subjects. But I was not really that good at it, so it was quite frustrating. And when I got into university, they never allowed me to take fine arts. It's like you have to take a preparatory course for law school. So I took political science in university. And I was in this university where there's an art club, because there's no art course there. And everyone who goes in this university are people who are not who are not rich, people who are just middle class or even below. So we created this art group, or there's this art group already, and I joined, and it's just like an escape for all of us. Like, we are all frustrated fine arts, but we can't afford going fine arts, or we grew up believing that that's not a job, it's just a hobby. So we did that as a hobby, and it became my escape place that we learned from each other. We draw, and it was a crazy university year. Anyways, I graduated, and after I graduated, I did a lot of different jobs, but I wasn't happy with any of it. And all I keep saying is, I want to be an artist. Just, what can I do to become an artist? And finally, I came here in UAE 6 years ago. I keep trying to get a job into design, but I don't have a degree. I don't know anything. And they're just like, okay, yeah, your drawings are good, but you don't know Adobe. But I immediately said, like, I can learn. Don't worry. And they gave me a job as a secretary, but they're like, okay, part-time, you will just do some design. And then eventually I took a very low salary job to keep learning digital works. Eventually it grew, and then it was quite a long journey, and finally I got to be really an official graphic designer after a few years of practice. But during my free time, I still keep drawing, and I know I will be happy drawing. So when the pandemic happened last year, automatically there was quite of a shutdown not really shutdown. We were forced to have leave. Like, it's forced leave because there's no work, but you can't just take your holidays now, everyone. So I had like 1 month leave, but you can't travel, you can't go anywhere, you're in lockdown. So that's where I focused, like, this is a gift. This is the time where I really need to focus now on digital art and illustration. So I took a course on Udemy for character design and drawing courses. I really studied for 4 weeks nonstop, and I joined some online competition. But the goal of joining the competition is not to win, but for me to learn and understand how character designing works, how the industry works, and learn from artists all over the world, because it's such a very good competition that happened on ArtStation, and people get feedback, all artists all over the world. It was it was an eye opener. And after that, I learned so much in that 1 month. It was like, I'm not sure, but it was too much information. But eventually I said to myself, I'm going to be an illustrator, but it's not easy. I need to keep practicing. So after the competition, I realized that there are still a lot of things for me to develop, like the colors and like what works, what doesn't work. So I joined Patreon of Poopy Cat. She's a popular children's book illustrator, and in her Patreon, she gives advices, tips on colors, what works for children's books, and all these things. And then I just keep practicing with that, so on. And eventually, I joined a huge creative community, Instagram and Discord, and I met a lot of artists there, and they love my work. They're like, wow, we haven't seen this kind of work. And they're very supportive. All the creative community is so supportive. And then we always have these meetups with artists through call in Zoom. And then I ask for an advice. I'm like, guys, I really want to be a book illustrator. Like, what should I do? I want to find clients. And they're like, Happy, it's so easy. Your work is good. There's still some things that definitely needs to be developed, but you can keep trying. So they recommended me to join Facebook groups where authors post there that they're looking for illustrators and stuff, or you can post your work. So I tried that. They recommended me where they usually find their clients. They're really helpful. So I posted some of my works. I read some clients, and I also did on LinkedIn. I looked for authors, and then I messaged authors like, hey, I'm an illustrator. Look at my website if you have another book coming. And then I kept trying until eventually I landed to Amy. She's a very lovely woman. She's also, it's her first novel. So she asked me like, hey, I like your work, so please illustrate my book. and that was my first project. And then I got lucky. Eventually, it grew from there, and I learned a lot along the way. And now I got 2 projects for children's books. So,
congratulations!
thank you.
That is so great. That is such an inspirational story, because you know what? Even though you were kind of steered in another direction, you always knew you wanted to be an illustrator. And now you are an illustrator. So that just shows if you really want something, you can make it happen. And I think it's fantastic. It's also fantastic the way that you've been marketing yourself. And hopefully this podcast can help you as well get out there to other authors who are looking to do, you know, children's books. Have you ever thought about illustrating comic books?
I really want to do that, yes. I've been thinking of that too, but it's quite some work. So currently right now I'm like living 2 lives. So I'm working also as a graphic designer, but I'm also doing a sideline. My book illustrator work is still on the side, but in 2 months I'm planning to go full-time book illustration because it's really rewarding, you know. I mean, it's a challenging path, but you know, you do things that you're happy. And I'm working also on this project with another illustrator in Brazil. So we're planning to build cover carving studio. It's basically pre-made book covers. So we're planning to help, maybe not for children's books for now, but also for novels and really hand-drawn pre-made book covers to support self-published self-published authors.
So is this a place where authors will go on the website and you'll already have book covers there and they can just choose the one that they want?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
That is so fantastic. I am happy for you. I'm excited for you. You are welcome, because you have really come a long way. And I think that, you know, anybody who sticks with it like you did, and just, I bet you when you got that first client, you were just like, thank you. And then it grew. And now you just said, what, in 2 months, you're going to go be a full-time book illustrator. Full-time.
Yeah. Full-time.
See?
And if you really stick your head into it, I mean, but it's not an overnight decision. It's not like, okay, I'm going to be a book illustrator and everything's magically, you know, going to appear. No, it's a constant decision every day. Like, will I be financially okay? Will I be this? It's a lot of things that you have to consider with it. And also even choosing becoming an illustrator. It's not like also like suddenly I'm like, boom, I'm going to be an illustrator. No, it took me also almost a year. So I started 2020 during the pandemic, which was, what's that, 2020? Yeah.
Yeah,
and
2020.
Yeah.
How could you forget?
Sometimes I'm like, where are we in now? So that happened. And then when I got my first project, it doesn't mean immediately that, okay, this is it. But it's a gradual decision that you have to make. Actually, I got that really good advice. So to all artists out there, I highly recommend reading The Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. So it's like a Bible for all creatives, not just artists, but also authors, musicians, anyone who are in the creative line. It's actually a very good book that gives you advice on, like, get not just from getting confidence, but also making practical decisions with your career path. So it's I highly this book changed my life so much and changed my decision making with becoming an illustrator.
That's great. So when somebody wants to work with you, if somebody is like, okay, I'm thinking that I want, you know, I'm looking for an illustrator, you know, to illustrate my book, what is your process? How do you, you know, come together and decide what what the author wants, because you don't know. So what is your process?
Yeah, so the first thing I do is I ask what's the idea of the book. And, us illustrators, when we work, I don't know if it works to all illustrators, but most of the illustrators I know, when we draw or when we create illustrations, we put huge personal, personal output on it, because that's for me. So I have to make sure that I like this, not just I like the story, but I love, or I can relate to what the story is about. Because if you cannot relate to it, so sometimes there are some authors who will reach out to me and I feel like, okay, this is a good story, but this doesn't speak that much to me. So I will try to recommend it to other artists that I think can illustrate it better. Because of course, I don't want to be selfish with it. Like, okay, it's not like I need to get this. It's business. It's this. No, it's personal. It's our time. It's your imagination, and yeah, you help illustrate in the book. So first, you ask what's the story, the idea, what's really the sole message of the book. After that,
do you read the book? Do you read the book?
No, I don't read the book unless we already agree that I'm going to take the project.
So that's what I'm saying. So if you take the project, you read the book.
Yeah, we read the book. But if it's a novel, I don't read the book. I just ask like a summary. But if it's children's book, because if it's children's book, you have to illustrate almost every page. So we read the book. But I only do that once we have a signed agreement. But if not, just give me the idea of it. So after the idea, so I show she's definitely, or this person definitely reached out to me because they like my art style. So, but sometimes I still give them like freedom. Like, can you share to me some ideas on Pinterest on how do you see this, or what's the character gonna be like, just to give an idea what they have in mind. And once it's done, so that's where we do the pricing. Pricing is a really tricky thing because it depends like how much details, the size, and after we have finally agreed on price, then I do my illustration in 3 phases. So first phase is rough sketches. So just scribbles how it looks like roughly. And once that phase is done, we go to phase 2, which is color blocking. So you just basically put like general colors first, how it looks like as a whole, no details that much yet. And after you have agreed on how the colors look like, then you go to the last phase, which is the rendered style. So render, that's where you put really all the details. Like for the leaves, you really put the details of the leaves, details of the face, and all the special effects. And once that's done, then you send the print-ready file.
Knowing that every project that you work on is different, price-wise and time-wise, on average, how long do you say it takes from beginning to end?
Oh, that's quite tricky. Usually for a project, I need at least 3 months.
No, but that really shows that you're really working. I have learned this from starting the podcast and talking to authors and making my own mistakes, that faster in this book writing journey that you're on is not necessarily better, right? You don't want to fast edit. You don't want to fast, somebody to illustrate fast, because quickly doesn't mean better. You want, as long as it took you to write that book, you want somebody who's going to put care into it. And I'm sure that when you do your illustrations, you take your time and you put care into it, and that takes time. That's a process for you.
Yes. Oh, and this is actually also very important for me during the not negotiation, but the getting to know each other phase between me and the author, is the timeline that they need. Because of course, this is really the most important thing. Like, are you flexible? Can you wait for me? Because this is how long I work usually. Because I told them, like, the research process is not easy. And sometimes your style as an artist changes depending on the tone of the story. Not all the time the story, for example, my style, if you will look at my artwork, you have a distinctive style, but there are certain styles that you leave in the story that when people see it, or when people see this kind of colors or feels, they know that that's her book, that's her story. It kind of reminds me of that. So it works like that. And researching takes time. That's, I think, the longest time that I spent so much, especially on the phase one. That I usually take at least a month on even just the rough sketch. Because once that's done, once the rough sketch is, like, there's already a backbone, then the muscles and the rest will follow along. It will go on smoothly.
Right. That makes sense. If somebody wanted to review your website and get a hold of you, what is that web address?
www.thehappylee.com.
Thehappylee.com. They can see your illustrations and reach out to you.
And reach out to me.
Happylee, thank you so much for being on the podcast and sharing what you do and making yourself available to authors and really, helping me understand how the illustration process works. I think it's fabulous what you do. I love your journey and your story. I think it's very inspirational. If you could leave us with one great words of inspiration or wisdom, what would that be?
Maybe this is to everyone who wants to pursue their dreams. It's not an easy path. It's a lot of heartbreaks and confusion with yourself. But if you believe in it enough, but believing is not enough, you have to work hard on it too. And your hard work eventually will pay back. And try not to compare your journey to others, because your journey is yours alone. But you can share that journey with other artists or in your community, and let's keep the inspiration rolling.
I agree. I like the part where you're saying don't compare yourself to others. I think we find ourselves doing that, and sometimes we forget our uniqueness when we do that. So thank you for those words again. Yeah, we do that a lot. And so I love to hear people say, you are the only you. You are the only Happylee. Yeah. Your illustrations are unique. And I think you should celebrate that. So no, you are very welcome. Again, thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for being a part of the book club.
We hope that this book club will grow as well, because it has really a lot of beautiful insights, and we hope to be able to share more knowledge to everyone for in the book industry.
Yeah. When you get your book cover collaboration with the other artists, when you guys get that website up and running, I expect for you to come back and tell us all about it and let us know how we can utilize that service. Definitely
I will. And I think I still have a lot. I wish we have some more time, because there's a lot of things that I wish to share. Like, remember what we discussed last time when we talked about the printing? Because I think this will be, hopefully in the future we can discuss this again, because this will be a good knowledge that we can impart to authors, especially the self-published and the first authors, because printing and illustrating is really one of the most crucial things in the publishing industry, because it can make or break your book, the printing.
Yeah, definitely. We'll definitely have to have you come back, and we can dedicate all of our time to kind of talking about that and helping people when they're looking at the printing process, especially when they're doing children's book with illustrations. So yes, so you have an open invitation to come back. You can come back anytime that you like. You're a member of the you're a member of the book club. So thank you so much, Happylee,
Thank you.
for being a part. We will definitely have you come back. All of her information will be in the podcast description, so you can reach out to her, check out her website, and look at her illustrations and see if she's a match for your upcoming project. Again, Happylee, thank you so much.
Thank you so much as well. It's my pleasure. So I look forward for next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Bright Headed Publishing Audiobook Book Club. I have been your host, Kelly Morgan. I just wrapped up with Illustrator Happylee. You can visit her website at www.happylee.com. There you can see her illustrations and reach out to her. She just might be a fit for your book. If you're interested in being showcased on the podcast and would like to be a member of the book club, email me, brightheadedpublishing@gmail.com. Next week, another episode, but until then, keep writing.